Lyra's heart hammered in her chest as the ground shook beneath the alien arena. Screams bounced off the high walls, sharp and metallic, carrying the smell of burning oil and something worse, fear. She crouched behind a stack of crates, her apron smeared with dust and sweat. The enforcers were coming. They always came. And today she knew someone was going to die. A massive shadow fell across the arena floor. Lyra's breath froze. One of the alien enforcers strode in, tall, armored in gleaming black plates, limbs bending in angles no human should manage. Its many eyes scanned the crowd. When it stopped in front of a small boy, frozen and trembling, the enforcer raised a clawed hand. Lyra's instinct screamed. She could not stand by. She seized a jagged shard of glowing metal from the floor. It was small, almost useless as a weapon, but in her hands, it felt like a lifeline. With a leap, she dashed forward, shouting, "Get back!" The shard clanged against the enforcer's armor, sparks flying. The alien hissed, unbalanced for a moment. That was all she needed. She grabbed the boy and pulled him behind her, his tiny hands clutching hers, eyes wide in terror. A high, humming vibration rippled through the arena. Lyra looked up and froze. The alien king's throne hovered above the center, massive and impossible, its surface alive with writhing lights. The energy pulsed almost like a heartbeat. She could feel it staring at her, probing, judging. Why was it reacting to her courage? Surely she was just a maid. "Who dares interfere?" A voice boomed, deep and metallic yet strangely melodic. The king descended slowly, a figure taller than any human could imagine. Scales shimmered like liquid metal, and eyes glowed bright with intelligence and power. Every step he took made the ground vibrate. The crowd of alien spectators fell silent. Even the enforcers froze. Lyra's pulse raced, but her mind worked faster. She glanced down at her apron. It was just a simple piece of cloth, but under it was the device she had hidden for months. A prototype. A human trick. One she had never dared test in the open. Today there was no choice. The king's gaze fixed on her, unblinking, and then, impossibly, he pointed. Lyra. Only her. The arena seemed to shrink around her. Every eye, thousands of alien eyes, watched. The enforcers murmured among themselves. She could hear the boy's shallow breaths in her hand. The air tasted like metal and fear. Lyra took a steadying breath. Then, without hesitation, she tore off her apron. The crowd gasped, some in shock, some in amusement. Underneath was the small device strapped to her chest, wires and pulsing energy cores barely contained. It hummed softly, reacting to her heartbeat. The king's throne flared, brighter than before, as if surprised by the human audacity. She stepped forward, her feet firm on the arena floor. Her hands shook slightly, but her mind was sharp. She had faced impossible odds before. This was just another test. A test of courage, intelligence, and survival. She raised her device slightly, letting its glow illuminate her face. The enforcer stepped closer, claws twitching. "You should not be here," it hissed. Lyra did not flinch. Instead, she whispered to the boy, "Hold on. Trust me." Then she ran. Quick steps, weaving between the enforcer's attacks, letting the shard and device distract it. Sparks flew. The crowd of aliens murmured, tension crackling like lightning. A strange thing happened. The colossus beast, chained to the far end of the arena, stirred. Its many eyes fixed on Lyra, head tilting curiously. Why did this human, so small, so fragile, command such boldness? Lyra barely noticed the giant creature. Her focus was on surviving, on protecting the boy, on defying the impossible. The king's voice rang out, louder now, shaking the arena's walls. "Bring me the strongest warrior." His energy pulse hit the floor, sending ripples through Lyra's legs. She stumbled, almost falling, but the boy's hand in hers anchored her. She realized in that terrifying moment that she had become the choice. The human maid, the weakest of all, was being called to face the arena's deadliest challenges. And she smiled. Not because she wasn't afraid, but because fear sharpened her mind. She had survived worse. She had outsmarted stronger. She had the one thing the king could not predict: human courage, ingenuity, and heart. The arena went silent. Every creature, every alien, every enforcer waited to see what she would do next. Lyra raised her head, squared her shoulders, and whispered, "I am ready." Suddenly, the floor beneath the king's throne cracked violently, a pulse of energy tearing through the arena. Sparks, smoke, and a deep rumble shook everyone to their core. The throne tilted, threatening to collapse. The king's expression shifted from amusement to shock. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, eyes widening. What had she triggered? The arena trembled again. The impossible had begun. The arena floor trembled beneath her boots. Dust and sparks filled the air as the king's throne swayed, the massive chains anchoring it groaning like living metal. Lyra pressed the boy against her side, his tiny hand shaking in hers. "Stay close," she whispered, though her own voice betrayed nothing but determination. A deep, rumbling growl echoed from the far side of the arena. The Colossus beast had broken free of its weaker restraints, its scaled body glinting under the pulsating light of the throne. It sniffed the air, eyes glowing, and then looked directly at Lyra. She froze for half a second, then realized it wasn't attacking. Not yet. Something in its gaze seemed curious. The king's voice boomed again, more forceful, resonating through the arena. "The human dares defiance. She will face the Colossus. Let the trial of champions begin." Lyra's heart hammered. The Colossus was a mountain of muscle and teeth, designed to crush any opponent. And here she was, unarmed except for the small device strapped to her chest and the shard she had snatched earlier. Every instinct screamed to run, but she knew the boy's life, the lives of the other humans, and perhaps even her own future depended on what she did next. The enforcers moved in, surrounding her. Their claws clicked against the metal floor as they closed in. Lyra glanced around, her mind racing. The arena was circular, with towering columns of alien stone scattered unevenly. She noticed a small gap near one wall, a narrow channel of debris and broken platforms that could give her some advantage. She grabbed the boy, pulled him toward the gap, and whispered, "Follow me and stay quiet." His wide eyes betrayed fear, but he nodded, gripping her arm tightly. The Colossus shifted, watching. Its many limbs flexed like steel cables. Lyra had no illusions, it could crush her instantly. She needed a plan fast. Then she remembered the device. She had never used it outside the lab. It could emit a pulse, a shock of energy, but she didn't know its full range. The first enforcer lunged. Lyra dodged, rolling to the side, and slammed her shard into its leg joint. Sparks flew. The enforcer roared, staggering, but immediately recovered. Lyra kicked off a nearby platform, using momentum to launch herself toward the next column. She felt the device vibrate against her chest as if urging her to act. The Colossus moved, raising a massive limb. The ground shook with each step. Lyra darted behind a broken column just as its claws smashed the floor where she had been standing seconds ago. Dust and shards flew everywhere. The boy gasped. Lyra grabbed his shoulder. "Trust me," she said again. "Just a little longer." Her device hummed louder now. She pressed a small button and a pulse of blue light shot outward. The Colossus froze mid-step, confused, tilting its head. The enforcers hissed, shielding their faces from the energy burst. It wasn't enough to stop the beast completely, but it gave her an opening. Lyra ran toward a series of platforms leading to the arena center, the boy clinging to her side. Sparks, dust, and alien energy arcs crackled around them. She ducked a swinging limb, barely avoiding a crushing blow. Then she noticed something unexpected. The Colossus' glowing eyes weren't just focused on her. They flickered, almost like they were observing, analyzing. A thought struck her. This wasn't just a mindless killing machine. It had intelligence, curiosity, maybe even understanding. Her heart pounded. If she could reach it, perhaps she could communicate at least enough to survive. She adjusted the device, aiming it at the Colossus. Another pulse of energy flashed. This time, the beast recoiled slightly but didn't attack. Instead, it let out a low, rumbling sound that almost sounded like a question. Lyra's mind raced. Could she calm it? Could she use this strange, dangerous creature's intelligence to her advantage? She stepped closer, holding the device low, letting it hum softly. Slowly, carefully, she extended her hand. The Colossus tilted its head again, massive jaws clicking, not in aggression but in curiosity. The arena erupted in alien chatter. The king's throne flared brighter, reacting violently to the pulse and the creature's hesitation. Lyra realized the king had not anticipated this. He wanted obedience, total domination, but she had introduced chaos. The unexpected spark of human ingenuity, courage, and empathy. Then a section of the arena wall cracked, sending a cascade of debris toward them. Lyra grabbed the boy, rolling aside just in time. Sparks flew from the impact. The Colossus stumbled backward, momentarily trapped by the rubble, giving her another chance. She whispered to the boy, "Stay behind me," and lunged forward, pressing the device to emit a stronger pulse. Blue light surged, vibrating through the arena. The Colossus let out a deafening roar, lifting one massive claw but hesitating before striking. Lyra felt the creature's power against her, overwhelming, but instead of attacking it stepped back, almost respecting her. The enforcers hissed and surged forward, but their momentum faltered. Lyra's small human defiance had created a ripple, a crack in the arena's impossible rules. The audience of aliens murmured in shock. The king's throne pulsed violently, more intensely than before. Lyra's chest heaved. Sweat burned her eyes, but she forced herself to focus. One wrong move and both she and the boy would die. Yet another thought struck her. If she could survive this trial, if she could outsmart or even tame the Colossus, the impossible might be possible. Suddenly, the king's voice rang louder than before, shaking the arena walls. "Enough! Do you dare defy me, human?" Lyra looked up at the towering figure, her pulse steadying. She smiled, even if only slightly, knowing she had turned the impossible into a fight she could survive. And then the Colossus lunged, not at her but toward the king's throne, shaking the arena to its core. The ground shook as the Colossus surged toward the king's throne, its massive claws gouging grooves into the arena floor. Lyra stumbled backward, the boy's hand clutching hers, heart hammering. The enforcers rushed to intercept the creature, but even they hesitated at the sight of its raw power. The air shimmered with energy from the throne, and the pulsating light reacted violently to the Colossus' movements. Lyra's eyes widened. Something about the king's throne was connected to the creature. She pressed herself against a column, scanning the arena. There were no weapons, no escape routes that weren't already blocked by falling debris or the thrashing Colossus. And yet, she noticed a faint pattern in the pulsing lights of the throne. It wasn't random. It followed the Colossus' movements, almost like a heartbeat syncing with the creature. Her mind raced. If the king's energy linked to the Colossus, then controlling, or at least manipulating, the creature might allow her to strike at the king indirectly. She risked a glance at the boy. "Stay behind me," she whispered, though she knew he wouldn't let her face this alone. His small hand remained tight in hers. The king's voice cut through the chaos, booming, metallic, furious. "You insolent human. Do you think your tricks can defeat me? I am eternal. My power surpasses anything you can imagine." Lyra's gaze flicked back to the Colossus. Its many eyes followed her every move. She realized it wasn't attacking the king blindly. It paused, hesitating, almost questioning. She took a deep breath and whispered, more to herself than to anyone else, "It's not just a monster, it's thinking. You can feel it. Work with it, not against it." The pulse of her device hummed louder as she adjusted the controls. This time she focused the energy on the Colossus' neural signals, or at least what she guessed were neural signals, trying to create a pattern it could recognize, a rhythm it could follow. Sparks shot into the arena floor. The Colossus froze mid-step, tilting its massive head. It lowered one claw slightly as if acknowledging her presence. A wave of hope surged through Lyra. If she could keep the creature calm, or guide it, maybe she could turn the king's own weapon against him. Her pulse quickened. The boy's eyes were wide, staring at her with trust that weighed heavier than any weapon. She could not fail him. The king's throne flared violently. "What is this?" he bellowed, rising slightly above the hovering seat. Energy rippled from the throne, striking the floor near Lyra. She felt a shockwave push against her, but she held firm, pulling the boy close. The Colossus blinked, then hesitated, as if sensing her courage, her intent. Lyra took a calculated risk. She stepped forward into the open, device held high. The Colossus watched, then slowly moved toward her. Every step caused the arena floor to quake. The king's eyes narrowed, realization dawning. "You cannot control it," he roared. "It is mine. All is mine." But the creature didn't attack. Instead, it circled her, massive limbs flexing, nostrils flaring. Lyra noticed it was reacting to her energy pulses, almost like it could feel her heartbeat, her determination. She held her ground, keeping her device steady, and whispered, "You don't have to fight him. Follow me." A flicker of recognition passed through the Colossus' eyes. The audience of aliens gasped. Even the enforcers seemed frozen. Lyra had done something no human had ever done. She had made a connection not through brute force but through intelligence and empathy. The king bellowed in rage, his throne pulsating violently. Energy arcs lashed outward, striking columns and scattering debris. Lyra ducked as a shard of alien metal nearly cut through her shoulder. She pressed the device harder, sending a stronger pulse directly toward the Colossus' core. The creature froze again, then slowly lowered its head, almost submissively. Lyra's heart raced. She realized the feedback was affecting the throne too. Sparks leapt from the king's seat, and he staggered slightly, unprepared for the disruption. She had found a weakness, a link she could exploit, but it was fragile. One mistake and both she and the boy would die. A sudden roar echoed from above. The king had activated a hidden energy field around the throne. Blue-white light shot toward them, carving through the arena floor. Lyra grabbed the boy and dove behind a fallen column. Dust, sparks, and chunks of stone rained down. The colossus froze, its massive body pressed against the energy field, shaking violently. Lyra's mind worked frantically. She could see the king's pattern now, the energy pulsing through the throne linked directly to the colossus' strength. If she could amplify her device at the right moment, she could break the link, free the beast and destabilize the king's power. Her pulse raced, fingers trembling. She whispered, "We can do this. We have to do this." The colossus blinked slowly as if understanding or maybe trusting. Lyra felt a surge of courage. Humans were small, fragile, and yet adaptable, inventive, fearless in ways creatures like this could not predict. She adjusted the device one last time. The pulse grew brighter, louder, resonating through her chest, through her heartbeat, through the arena. The colossus quivered in response, then unleashed a deafening roar, breaking the energy field with a shockwave that sent the king staggering backward. The arena went silent, even the air heavy with the aftermath of energy arcs. Dust hung in the light, trembling as the colossus stood between her and the throne. Lyra's chest heaved. She had survived. She had won a small victory, but the king's fury was far from spent. Then from the throne, a hidden compartment opened. A glowing crystal, unlike anything Lyra had ever seen, hovered above the king's hand. Its energy was immense, almost alive. The king's eyes blazed. "This changes everything," he muttered, his voice trembling with both anger and curiosity. Lyra froze, staring at the crystal. She realized the trial was far from over. Whatever the king held now could destroy her, the boy, and perhaps even the colossus. Lyra's chest heaved as she faced the king directly. The arena was a shattered maze of debris, dust, and crackling energy. The colossus stood beside her, enormous and tense, its multiple eyes following her every move. The boy clung to her side, trembling but alive. All around them, the alien spectators watched in stunned silence, as if witnessing a human daring to challenge a god. The king rose from his throne, his body radiating power that made the air hum. His crystal pulsed violently, casting jagged blue light across the arena floor. "You dare manipulate my creature? You dare defy me?" His voice shook the walls, sending tremors beneath their feet. Lyra's hands tightened around her device. She had one shot, one plan, but it was enough if she acted boldly. He lashed out, sending arcs of energy toward her and the colossus. Lyra dove behind a fractured pillar, dust and sparks raining down. She adjusted the device, feeling it vibrate against her chest. The pulse could disrupt the king's energy, but timing was everything. One wrong move and the boy, the colossus, and she would be nothing but ash. The king advanced, his claws tearing grooves in the arena floor. "Humans are fragile. You cannot survive," he roared. Yet something flickered in his expression: curiosity. He had underestimated human courage, human ingenuity, and now, perhaps, human empathy. Lyra glanced at the colossus. It had followed her lead before. Now she needed it to act again, not with brute force but with understanding. She tapped the device twice, sending a synchronized pulse aimed to reach both the creature and the king's energy link. The colossus shivered in recognition, then lowered a massive claw slightly, signaling it was ready. The king's eyes narrowed. "You think you can control the trial of champions? You think you?" Lyra stepped forward, shouting over the roar of energy arcs. "No. I'm not controlling anyone. I'm giving them a choice. You cannot dominate everything." She pressed the device fully against her chest. Blue light erupted outward, surrounding her, the boy, and the colossus. The energy pulsed rhythmically, mirroring her heartbeat, filling the arena with a strange harmony that even the king could not resist. The colossus roared, massive limbs slamming the ground, but instead of attacking, it pushed a wave of energy toward the king's throne. Sparks flew. The crystal in his hand flickered violently, unstable. The throne quaked as if it were alive, the king staggering, his balance momentarily broken. Lyra's eyes widened. This was her chance. She darted forward, ignoring the pain in her arms from holding the device. She leapt toward the king's throne, placing herself directly under the energy crystal. The colossus braced itself, shifting its weight to shield her from retaliatory strikes. Lyra pressed the device's final button. A massive pulse of light shot into the crystal, resonating through the throne and into the king. The energy arcs backfired, striking the walls and sending debris flying. The king screamed, staggering backward, energy crackling across his scales. The crystal spun wildly, finally breaking free from his grasp and hovering momentarily before plummeting to the floor. A shockwave tore through the arena, knocking Lyra off her feet. She landed hard but rolled immediately, pulling the boy down with her. The Colossus bellowed, slamming a massive claw into the arena floor, creating a tremor that further destabilized the king's throne. The king glared at them, furious but weakened. Lyra felt a surge of hope. Her plan had worked, but only partially. The king was not defeated yet. She scrambled to her feet, looking at the boy. "We can do this. Just a little more." His eyes shone with trust and fear combined. Lyra's mind raced. She had one more chance to turn the tide completely. She ran toward the throne again, this time using the Colossus as a shield. Energy arcs hit its body, but it remained steadfast, loyal to her courage. The king roared, summoning a wave of energy meant to obliterate everything around him. Lyra leapt, pressing the device against the remaining energy nodes on the throne. Sparks, blue light, and heat exploded in every direction. For a heartbeat, the arena seemed to pause, the king's fury frozen mid-scream. Then the device overloaded, sending a blinding pulse outward. When the light faded, Lyra's eyes adjusted. The throne was cracked, the crystal shattered. The king staggered, injured but alive, his energy fluctuating wildly. The Colossus lowered its massive head to her, emitting a low, almost approving rumble. The boy clutched her hand, smiling through tears. For the first time, hope glimmered in a place where there had been only terror. Lyra's chest burned, arms aching, but she stood tall. She had done the impossible. She had used intelligence, courage, and empathy to survive an overwhelmingly powerful enemy. Humans had shown, not through brute strength but through heart and ingenuity. The audience of aliens whispered among themselves, their expectations shattered. One human had dared to defy a god. But the king's glare lingered, his energy unstable but not gone. "You have won this trial, but you cannot escape your fate," he hissed, voice low, dangerous. Lyra felt a chill. The danger was not over. She had survived, yes, but the king's reach extended far beyond the arena. The Colossus nudged her gently, almost guiding her toward the arena exit. Lyra looked back at the throne, her mind racing. The king might be wounded, but he was alive, and whatever plans he had, they were far from over. She could not relax, not yet. The arena was quiet now, dust settling on shattered platforms and glowing debris. Lyra leaned against the Colossus, catching her breath, the boy still clinging to her side. The king had retreated to the shadows of his broken throne, wounded but glaring, his crystal shards scattered across the floor like fallen stars. Every muscle in Lyra ached, every heartbeat thumped in her chest, but she was alive. More than that, she had survived what no human had dared attempt. She knelt beside the boy, brushing dust from his hair. "We're safe, for now," she said, her voice trembling with relief, though her mind raced with the implications. His eyes shone, trust and awe mixed with fear. Lyra realized something powerful. Humans were fragile, yes, but their courage, intelligence, and heart could tip the balance where sheer strength could not. The Colossus loomed protectively beside them. Its massive eyes flicked between Lyra, the boy, and the fractured throne. Despite its size, it seemed gentle, almost aware of the stakes. Lyra extended a trembling hand toward one of its scaled limbs. "We did it together," she whispered. The creature's low rumble echoed in agreement, a bond forged in the crucible of danger. Beyond the arena, the alien spectators murmured in disbelief. Many had expected another human to die, crushed beneath claws or energy blasts. Instead, they had witnessed ingenuity, bravery, and defiance, their assumptions shattered by one small, unarmed human. Lyra's actions had left a mark not only on the arena but on the minds of every observer. She rose slowly, glancing at the scattered remnants of the king's throne. Sparks still flared from damaged energy conduits. She realized the king had survived, and that meant this victory was only temporary. He would rebuild, strike back, and test humans again. But for now, she had done something no one thought possible. Humans had not only survived, they had shined. The boy tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide. "Are we really free?" he asked. Lyra knelt and looked him in the eyes. "Not completely," she admitted, "but we've changed the rules. Humans can stand against impossible odds. And together we'll keep fighting." The boy's face brightened, a small smile breaking through fear. Hope, fragile and fleeting, began to grow. Lyra's gaze drifted to the Colossus. It had been considered a weapon of destruction, a trial designed to kill, yet here it was, calm and loyal. Her heart swelled with pride. She had not needed armor or weapons or brute force. Her courage, empathy, and ingenuity had won. Humans were underestimated, but in that underestimation lay their greatest strength. A sudden ripple ran through the arena floor. Lyra stiffened. The king's energy pulses were fading, but traces remained, scattered and unstable. She knew the fight was far from over. One misstep and the king could rise again. Yet even in that knowledge she felt resolve. Humans survived because they did not yield to fear. They adapted, they thought, they fought. She scanned the horizon. Broken columns, scorched platforms, the echoes of battle. They were remnants of the impossible challenge she had faced. And yet, amidst the destruction, humans had prevailed. She had protected the boy, tamed the colossus, and survived the king's wrath. That small, daring defiance was enough to spark change, enough to inspire others hidden among the spectators. Lyra crouched beside the boy again. "We should move," she said softly. "This arena is unstable. The king may return." The colossus bent its massive neck, nudging her gently, almost urging them onward. She followed its lead, stepping carefully over rubble and glowing cracks in the floor. As they neared the exit, a distant hum grew. Lyra froze, recognizing the sound. The shattered crystal fragments were resonating together, forming a new energy pulse. A warning, a signal, perhaps a new threat. The king's influence had not vanished entirely. It lingered, waiting, watching. She realized that surviving today was only the first step. The greater challenge lay ahead. Yet Lyra smiled faintly, determination blazing in her eyes. She had faced impossible odds, defied a being stronger, older, and far more powerful than any human should. She had survived, and in doing so she had proved something larger than herself. Human courage, ingenuity, and empathy could tip the scales, even against the most overwhelming enemies. The boy looked up at her. "Do you think we can stop him next time?" Lyra crouched, holding his shoulders, voice steady. "We will. One step at a time. Humans survive. Humans fight. And humans shine no matter what comes." Behind them, the arena walls trembled faintly, a reminder that the king's reach extended far beyond what they could see. But Lyra had a plan now. She had learned the king's weaknesses, understood the colossus' intelligence, and proven that fear could be overcome with courage. Every step they took from this arena would be another step toward defiance, toward freedom, toward a future where humans were more than prey, they were hope. The colossus lowered its massive head, nudging Lyra and the boy through the exit. Light from outside bathed them, warm and golden, a stark contrast to the cold, metallic shadows of the arena. Lyra inhaled, letting the sunlight fill her lungs. For a moment they were safe. For a moment they had survived. But even in that moment of triumph, the pulse of energy from the broken throne continued to thrum faintly, like a heartbeat waiting to awaken. Lyra's eyes narrowed. The king was wounded, yes, but he was not gone. And somewhere out there, the next challenge waited. Micro cliffhanger / next video tease. Lyra stepped into the light, human courage blazing, knowing the king's empire had far more secrets, power, and dangers yet to come. The galaxy itself was watching, and the true test of her ingenuity, courage, and heart had only just begun. The human maid had survived, the colossus had been tamed, and hope had sparked. But beyond the arena, the shadow of the alien king loomed larger than ever.